Our regular meeting of the Beavercreek Township Trustees of August 29th, 2016 to order. It's the last meeting of the summer. And with that, we will start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have an agenda in front of us. Do we have any additions, modifications, or deletions?
Yes, Board, I have one under the administrator. I'd like to add a resolution for a moratorium on marijuana.
Okay. Any other? You have anything? Seeing none, motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the August 31st, 2016 payroll in the amount of $267,427.02.
Second.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve the bills in the amount of $140,872 and
$672.
sorry, $140,672.06.
Second.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
Yes. That's interesting that the biggest, the huge part of it is the medical insurance, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. This time we open the meeting to citizens who would like to speak to us about any issues that they have concerning the township.
Right now, I'm just gonna observe. Thank you very much.
Okay, seeing none. We don't have any old business, we don't have any new business other than what our administrators and department heads are gonna bring to us. So, Mr. Administrator?
Thank you, Board. The first item is it's that time of year for the control bow hunting program. As I sent out, the ODNR has issued the dates and time frame for the bow hunting. On page 3 of your agenda packet is the controlled bow hunting program rules and regulations for 2016-2017. The only changes from last year in the rules and regulations are the times that ODNR put out. So the season starts September 24th and ends February 5th in 2017. It identifies the parks as well. Same two parks as last time. Page 8 of your packet is the notification that we put out on social media as well as our website. The only change there from last year is we highlighted the city of Beavercreek or Beavercreek Township residents. We do receive a lot of phone calls from people outside the Beavercreek community interested in participating in the bow hunting program. Page 9 is the application, no change there as well, and page 10 is the actual, once the board picks the bow hunters in the lottery system, this is the application that they fill out for their permit, no changes there. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
If we're not going to change the ordinance or the resolution from year to year, other than the dates, would it be reasonable to put in place the dates that, just say the dates that are determined by ODNR? Or
Well, sometimes there are changes to some of the rules and regulations.
Yeah, well, then I can see changing.
Yeah.
But
And
if
there
there
was-
are no changes other than the dates.
Yeah. Yeah, and every year we just go ahead and approve the rules and regulations, and we post them on our website as well, so anyone who is interested in applying to be a part of the lottery system already has a copy of the rules and regulations. If the board wants to move forward with the 2016-2017 controlled bow hunting program, all I would need is a motion authorizing the rules and regulations as presented.
The only thing, and we can make the motion and have some discussion for maybe for future years, but I'll go ahead and I'll make a motion to approve the controlled bow hunting program rules and regulations for 2016-17 as presented.
And I will second that.
And then just some discussion. The right now we pick, or we select essentially 8 names, and they have it for the duration duration of that season.
Yes.
And the only thing that was brought up to me before, and I thought it was actually a good idea, was to maybe split that season so that you could actually. The question is, how many hunters do we turn away? And so, if we could fill 16 slots by splitting the season in half and saying you get the A segment or the B segment.
So in the years past, even though that we authorized, so the last 2 years we've authorized 8 bow hunters, we've only really had 3 active people. Now what happened last year, which was different than the prior years, is that someone that was picked in the lottery was hunting someplace else and tagged out. So there is no provisions within the program that allow us to pick maybe alternate. And we can simply do that without updating the rules and regulations. But when you do the lottery, you can maybe pick 2 more people. So if something would happen, in other words, the person says, I'm not going to be able to do it this year, we can go ahead and take one of the alternates. Or if someone is already tagged out in another location, we can pick the next person.
How long does it take a hunter to set up whatever it is they need?
Usually our hunters go in, usually the first, we have allowed a couple days before to allow them to go in and set up their stands. They're not allowed to hunt until obviously season starts. But they take a day. A lot of times, as you can see in the rules and regulations too, there's a lot of clearing as well. And we identify what they're allowed to clear. So for example, honeysuckle, they're allowed to clear as much honeysuckle as they want in the parks. But other than that, so they set up their area. They put a lot of time and effort into their area that they picked. And like I said, last year, the 3 that we had, they were out there the first day, ready to go.
I was just wondering, if we did split the season, how much disruption would it be for the individuals? Now, how much would they lose? But if it's only a day or so.
Yeah, if we did decide to split
the
the,
middle,
yeah, if we
wouldn't
decide
be
to split the
crucial.
season, what I would recommend is that we take wherever that weekend split would be, to allow the people in the first, let's say, session, remove their stuff and so we wouldn't allow hunting during that time or during that weekend, so there's not someone out there
Shooting
potentially
whatever.
hunting while they're taking their stand down. But that's strictly up to the board if they want to move forward with it, or with the split season.
I think the alternate
I like the
concept
alternate.
is good for this year, and then maybe put some more thought into the disruption factor and other things.
Okay.
As far as a split season in the future, but it was just a concept. If we're turning people away, if we're getting barely enough to fill the 8, it doesn't. It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
It was really more of an issue if we're turning people away.
Yeah, so after the lottery, staff meets with the group, and we asked out just courtesy that they send out an email to everyone that's in the program as well as us, and that's why we can kind of determine who's actually using it and who's getting out there maybe once a month or so on.
Ready to vote?
Yep.
Call the roll.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
You know what, Alex, sorry, did you get the name of that?
Yes.
We had a gentleman call.
Yes, I
Okay.
got that, and I'll call him tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes, I've got 3 or 4 more people on my
Okay.
list, and a few people that walked in this past week. So next meeting board, we will be drawing like we do out of a hat.
So you've already gotten people applying.
We've had people call and people come to the office wanting to know when the application period opens. So it officially opens tonight, now that the board approved it. We'll have either on the website tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. And we'll send it out social media as well. Thank you, board. Next item is on page 11 of your packet, is a request by the sheriff's office for purchase of body cameras. Page 12 is some information about the body cameras, as well as a little letter from Major Bowman from the sheriff's office in regards to the storing. They picked this company because they have 2 locations where they'll be storing it off-site, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. We do not have to, as a township, be concerned about storing the information. All that's going to be stored through the sheriff's office, through a third-party vendor. They will be handling all the public records issues that are associated with that as well. So if one of our deputies make a stop here in Beavercreek Township and someone wants a copy of the video, they'll do that through the Greene County Sheriff's Office. I do have a motion and purchase request right here.
It was very nice where they broke down the entirety, where they said how much everyone's cost and what our share gets.
Yes.
This item was budgeted,
Yes.
where are we pulling this from?
This is coming out of the police fund, yes. We had money in there for equipment costs because there tends to be some equipment items that come up every year. This year, it was the body cameras. We knew that the sheriff was interested in going with body cameras, but we didn't know cost. So this was kind of we'll wait and see what happens with the sheriff's office and their process.
Okay. And do we anticipate any other sheriff vehicle-related equipment costs this year?
Not that we know of.
Okay.
Knock on wood.
Only from
Nothing
the slip.
planned. So
No,
it
no,
would be an
no.
unplanned event.
No.
Okay, that's my point.
Any other discussion?
I'm ready for your
That
motion.
being said, I make a motion to approve purchase request 00373 to Greene County Sheriff's Office for 4 body cameras in an amount $7,132.14, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second?
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Kreitz?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the biweekly report from the Greene County Sheriff's Office. That starts on page 20 of your packet. One item that was discussed at the last meeting was a shots fired call. I sent out that information to the board. We do receive some shots fired or weapons complaint out in the township, and all of them are associated with target shooting, which is allowed in the unincorporated area of the township. In this case, target was creating noise. The gentleman was done for the day, so he understood that he was causing a lot of noise, but he was done. But the sheriff went out, observed it. They were following the state law in regards to target practice away from residential properties and so many feet from a house or structure. Are there any questions on the sheriff's office biweekly report? Thank you, Board. The next item starts on page 26 is
I
the,
don't think
Oh,
that
yeah,
title
the
there is
oh, I'm sorry, the moratorium, not on my notes. Board, in front of you is a resolution. This is similar language that many of the municipalities and townships are using, put a 6-month moratorium on the marijuana issue that was passed by our state legislator in regards to sales of medical marijuana. This just puts a moratorium until our zoning commission meets and presents and approves text amendment language and recommends that approval to the Board of Township Trustees. We are working on it now in regards to text amendments, in regards to our zoning resolution. I don't think it's going to take 6 months for us to pass that, but in case there is any other issues, we don't know the rules and regulations yet through the state, one of the state.
There's several state agencies, although my comment to that would be that we shouldn't wait for those because those really go to the licensing issue and not the zoning issue. And that's why when the request comes up for, why can't we go 12 months since it's looking like it may be, next spring before some of those regulations are. You start to get into some issues if you take it too long without some real justification, and I think those things don't really go to the zoning issues. And if you find that at the end of 6 months that it's still not resolved and you need to extend it, you have the ability to do that, but
6 months seems to be the reasonable time to allow you to remedy the situation for which you are doing the moratorium
it's
in general.
right, just really resolving how, because the statute as enacted allows for the township to consider a number of different things, whether it's an all-out ban, limit the numbers, different things like that. So you have to be able to address that and figure out where the township wants to go with that.
Is the final one just?
The final one, yes, I have a final clean copy that doesn't, it's not marked copy,
Now,
it's the
my
same.
only comment on it is that the signature page does not indicate what it is we are signing.
Yeah.
And somehow I have a problem with that.
Well-
So I'm gonna put sort of a header on the top somewhere, if you would, put the header somewhere there before we sign it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
This
tell you,
signature page
Just
does
put a
not
resolution
indicate.
number.
That's what I was gonna say. If you just leave it on
Yeah.
like the resolution number on top.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah.
Resolution
Okay.
number on top.
I would be much
yeah,
more
and if we
comfortable
go
with that
beyond,
because
usually
otherwise-
2 pages, it's front and back. If we go to
Right.
3, I'll make sure we have at least a footnote.
For
next-
resolution
Yes.
numbers,
Yeah.
It would be very helpful with that.
Official one.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to
I'll make
approve
a-
this resolution.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve a resolution imposing a moratorium of 6 months on the issuance and processing of any permits allowing cultivators, processors, and retail dispensaries within the township as presented.
I'll second that.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes,
Ms. Graff.
Yes,
and this is the official one.
yes,
Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Beavercreek Township, Greene County, Ohio, that number one, the Board of Trustees hereby imposes a 6-month moratorium from the effective date of this resolution on the processing and issuance of permits or certificates for any building structure, use, or change of use that would enable the cultivation, processing, or retail dispensing of medical marijuana-related businesses and uses in order to allow the Board of Trustees, staff, and zoning commission members to review applicable statutes, codes, and resolutions relative to such uses. Number two, no certificates or permits of any kind shall be processed or issued to an applicant who intends to open, use any land, or devote any floor area of a business for the purposes of cultivation, processing, or retail sale of medical marijuana for the period of this moratorium. No valid existing business in the township may expand in any way that would establish cultivation, processing, or retail sale of medical marijuana for the duration of the moratorium. The Board of Trustees directs the Township Administrator and Zoning Administrator to immediately undertake a review of the new law and related issues and to have staff recommend resolutions to the Board regarding the cultivation, processing, and retail dispensing of medical marijuana. The moratorium shall be in effect for a period of 6 months from the effective date of this resolution or until changes are enacted to amend the zoning resolutions of the Township to address these issues or until the Board approves legislation explicitly revoking this moratorium, whichever comes first. And finally, that it is hereby found and determined that all formal actions of this Board concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this Board, and that all deliberation of this Board and of its committees that resulted in such formal action were taken in meetings open to the public in compliance with all legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code.
Thank you, Board. Next item is now bi-weekly report for the Human Resource Department. It starts on page 26 of your packet. Are there any questions?
Is there a finish line yet with Xenia Township in their, the project we've been working on with them?
Yes, they completed, I don't know if there's been a official vote by the Xenia Township trustees, but in regards to staff time, it is complete. The only project that's left out there is the update of some of their personnel policies in regards to their contract negotiations.
Okay. At the next meeting, can we get just a summary of what was charged, what's been paid, and what is yet to be billed?
Sure.
and how many hours that it entails, which would come from the charges.
Right. Just from the onset of the project through where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 28 is the zoning department's biweekly report. As you can see, this continues to be an area where there's a lot of work with all the residential growth in the community. Are there any questions?
Maybe something for this evening, but yesterday's newspaper talked about the building in the area in Greene County, and talked about the city of Beavercreek, and talked about something like 718 permits, and I'm thinking, did anyone have an indication of how many permits that the city is doing, or maybe I'll just ask someone tonight
Well,
at a joint meeting?
I could definitely provide that information. I don't have up-to-date information this year, but I have in their final numbers last year. And I
Just
think if that's
seemed-
talking total permits,
Commercial.
yeah, I think if that may, and we can clarify with the city of Beavercreek, but that may include all their permits, much like you see in regards to our permits.
Right, the 292
yeah.
at the bottom there.
So for a city that size, you're in a
They were
lot more
talking about
permits.
the residential construction, I believe.
And when we talk about,
It just seemed that they might have taken in the entire Miami Valley
right,
when they were coming up with their numbers, because that would seem to be exorbitant, even though we have a reasonable amount, but we're experiencing a lot of growth.
exactly. So compared, so last year in regards to 2015, obviously, when it comes to valuations, the county definitely follows those numbers. Beavercreek Township and residential had the largest for Greene County in regards to valuations brought to the county, followed by the city of Beavercreek in residential growth. And then the next highest when it came to commercial, the highest was obviously the city of Beavercreek. And we didn't do too bad last year in 2015 in commercial growth. So.
Ed, if you can just double check your spreadsheet for the next meeting, unless we issued 74 park permits, is that real, or was that a carryover from the first line?
Yes. In fact, I issued the 75th permit after that was,
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
For parks? Or for,
these are the three parks facilities for which we issue permits.
okay,
So far this year, a total of 75 have
Okay.
been written.
it matched the number of
Houses.
housing, single-family dwellings, that's why I thought it might have
Oh,
been a typo.
I didn't see that
Okay,
coincidence.
So the parks have
park
been
for
busy.
every house. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
One other question, Nathaniel's Grove and River Reserves, you don't anticipate until spring as far as permits before they've got a lot of work to get done between now and November.
We might see record plans by the end of the year.
Okay,
But you
Yeah,
don't think
and
you'll
so
have any
that's
housing permits, is there?
26 parcels in the first section of Nathaniel's Grove and 42 in the first section of River Reserve.
Yeah, we anticipate the infrastructure to be in by the end of the year. Whether or not we get a house permit out of it this year is questionable.
Are either of them asking for model houses?
Each subdivision would be I can write a single permit for a model home in each subdivision prior to recordation. Although we've learned with Claiborne, that it's preferable to wait until the parcels are recorded, because then it becomes questionable. They don't get addresses, and sometimes addresses get changed afterwards, and then it's confusing all the way up to the recorder's office. It involves a fair amount of work to make any changes that are necessary after recordation of the parcels. So I prefer to wait until we at least know what the addresses are going to be before issuing a model home permit. But I'm permitted to issue one permit per subdivision prior to recording.
Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Anything else on Bexley? No resolution yet on the emergency access. People are simply getting back from vacations and we're figuring that stuff out.
Okay.
A new issue arose, with the intense rain we had 2 weeks ago.
I saw that drainage.
A resident who has placed fill in a drainage easement in their backyard and back water up onto a neighbor, and we're working that one out now. So, collecting photographs and establishing contact. I've got a letter underway to the neighbor instructing them to
Here.
remove the fill that they placed in the backyard. So, but that's a neighbor-to-neighbor issue. But it's our easement, so the letter will come from us.
And if necessary, we can go in and clear it.
If necessary, we can go in and remove it. In this case, it would involve relocating a shed as well, which was put up without a permit. So, always new and interesting stuff to
challenge.
deal with.
We have this wonderful, good report. We have revenue projections, and you've put it in since 2010. Have we been able to see that increase in what we are getting from the county? In the projections that they give us, have they has it been following? Have you seen in the road in 2000, it takes 2 years, so in 2013, should have been an increase of 10,000 for road. 2012, which will come in 14, 18,000. Have we seen any of those projected increases
We have-
following what we have assumed?
We have started to see some of those increases, but not as what we projected in regards to early on. Now, we're starting to see some of the revenue coming in higher than what we have budgeted for, and budget is based on historical information.
No, we have done so much to give us this information. I was just wondering if we see a parallel in what actually is coming. So then we know in
Are
the
the
future that,
projections becoming a reality?
Yes.
Yeah.
so then can we say, okay, this will really take place in that point? Because the planning for the future is extremely important as
Mhm.
Yeah, and
the dollars get more and more restricted.
the spreadsheet that's for you, in front of you every 2 weeks, and the zoning was created between the zoning department and working with
Right.
the county auditor on getting those numbers. Now,
Though it makes some assumptions, those assumptions are based on data
Average.
from other.
right, and we have to use those assumptions based on the building costs that we're seeing currently. So
Right.
we have seen an increase, especially in the neighborhoods that were building during the downturn of the economy. We start to see those costs in regards to what they're selling the homes for increased. And then, of course, as you go south in the township, we see much higher valued homes all the way to the southern part of the township.
But you're using
But
a
the resident-
relatively modest, they said 350,000, so that's sort of
Yeah,
modest.
The residential, the value of residential construction in Beavercreek Township surprised even the people at the county level who prepared those reports in the year-end reports for 2015. So, and we were surprised. So we had them go back and verify them, and they did. They checked all the figures. And so, for example, the value of residential construction in Beavercreek Township in 2015 was over $435 million. The value of residential construction in the rest of Greene County was $72 million. It's far and away the biggest contributor to residential construction in the county. And we're behind only Beaver Creek City and one other jurisdiction in commercial.
City of Faribault.
We're not famous for commercial construction dollars right now, but I mean, once any jurisdiction achieves the kind of critical mass population that we seem to have gotten to, the commercial can't be far behind. And so there are plans on the horizon. We've talked about a couple of them here. New car dealerships coming, so on and so forth. Those numbers are only going to go up in the next year or so.
Thank you. As long as you're trying to see what's going on, it would be to me, it would be an interesting process.
Yeah, and I think with the year-end numbers, we go back and evaluate the spreadsheet, but this definitely gives us a good snapshot every 2 weeks of what's going on in the community in regards to growth, both residential, commercial, as well as permits. And when the economy has turned around, at least locally, we're seeing other permits. People are investing in additions and decks and pools and sheds and those things, if they get a permit. So, and we did in the In Touch talk about permits this time, just so that the residents are familiar. There is some confusion in regards to covenances when a resident moves in, and it says in the covenants that they need permission from the homeowners association. So they go through that process with the homeowners association in some of the neighborhoods, but that is separate than what they need to do with the township. So we're doing a little better job of educating our community in regards to permits they need. When we meet with the homeowners associations as well, the active ones, we do talk about that as well and explain the process of going and getting a permit for fences and pools. We talk about covenances in the reverse to let the residents know that we always encourage them to go through their homeowners associations first, because the township doesn't enforce the covenances in the neighborhoods.
At that point, then, the homeowners association, maybe they do, if people come to them for permission, they say, well, you also need to go to get the township
Right.
permit too.
Right.
So that there's no disjointing there.
Well,
They
and
get
we know with
one.
one of our 100% build out resident or neighborhoods, it says in there, it lists what they need to get permission for, and then it lists the homeowners association and us. But there's other things that they need to get approval from the township for, and
Right,
so
in
when you
addition
read
to
that,
those.
you think, well,
That's
I just need to get for example, a fence permit through the homeowners association, approval by the homeowners association, and a permit through the township, but it doesn't address sheds. So it's a big question mark. So,
right.
It's always tricky because we can neither require them to produce approval from their HOA before issuing a zoning permit, nor do we obviously have authority to actually enforce the covenants ourselves. And we don't want that. I mean, they're all different and so forth. But we do, on the other hand, want to make sure that we know they exist and we want the residents to do their due diligence. However, if they come back and insist that we issue a permit because they qualify for it based on the township zoning resolution, we don't really have a choice but to issue that permit. And then it becomes an issue, well, should I call the HOA now and tell them I've issued a permit and that I know is in violation of their covenants? What kind of reporting responsibility do we bear? It's a constant sort of tension between covenants and zoning resolutions.
Do
and
we
that-
keep track of the covenants? Do we have a file with the covenants?
Yes, it's
So the only
poorly
thing we can
organized
do-
at the moment,
Okay.
but yes, we have copies of covenants, and when we have need to search for them and can't find them, we go to the recorder's office and get a copy.
Okay, so
Or to the
the most
camp.
we can do is say, have you check with your homeowners
Right.
association and whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
What we're talking about really is it's education, and
Right,
so
yes.
there are two groups that need to be educated. One is the residential realtors, and number two is the residential home buyer.
Right.
And so since 90% or better than 90% of the homes transact with a licensed realtor, it's almost as though you need to need to prepare essentially a guide essentially that goes to the DABR.
And that's important. We've had two important local recent
reading.
cases.
Yep.
The emergency access in Bexley and the dispute on Ankeny Road.
Right.
In both cases, homeowners have said, this was not in my packet when I closed on this property.
Right.
information about this easement or this restriction. I didn't get a copy of the covenants. Well, the law might say you knew or should have known.
Right.
But there's also the real estate principle of
Buyer beware.
disclosure,
It's caveat
required
emptor, right.
disclosures, and
Mhm.
who's bound by that? I'm not an attorney and I'm not an expert on real estate, and I don't pretend to inform people of anything other than that those elements are out there and they need to do their homework.
It really needs it's an education process, needs to go back to the residential realtors and get them to at least create an awareness is really
Right.
the biggest thing, because
Exactly.
the caveat emptor, buyer beware, it's out there, but it's kind of, it's the obstruction between a sale and a closing, and so
Yep.
we have to get past that.
I think it's an issue here partly because so much of our residential construction is done by virtue of planned unit developments, and the PUDs are the most likely entities to have covenants.
And I think even to some extent, you've got those individuals out there that know it's out there, but they say, well, it's not enforceable if you wanna do this.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a more real thing happening than anything else, because, you know, most anybody knows there's a homeowners association. They're gonna know that. But they're gonna say, well, if you want that, you just need to go get a permit for it. They can't, the homeowner association technically can't stop you.
But it becomes a civil matter at
It
that
becomes
point.
a
yeah.
Civil
Civil
matter,
matter.
but then if it goes to the common pleas, they're never gonna, unless there's some kind of negligence or something,
Right.
they're never gonna not side with that homeowner.
Right, that's,
I've said that,
Even on the public, when they don't
More
get a
than
permit
once
for a
in-
public permit.
I've said that more than once in the past month to a homeowner, that whether these covenants are enforceable is up to a judge.
But
Sorry,
you have,
I can't
you
do
have
any better.
You have a classic case of it right now, where
Mhm.
a property was acquired about a year ago, and was put up for sale because of a dispute, which turned out they didn't know there was a restriction, and now that house is already sold,
Oh, that's
Right.
right.
which is great, except hopefully the new buyer is aware of that.
Hopefully the disclosures will be made this time
It
by
should
all
be,
parties
yeah.
involved.
It should be.
But we are not the ones to enforce that.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
We got a zoning education.
Zoning's a blast.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating.
The day you stop saying that is the day we'll be worried.
yeah.
You're on record for that.
Thank you, Board. The next item is on page 32 of your packet. It's the IT Department's biweekly report. Are there any questions?
I had none.
Okay,
Everything that was happening with the emails last time, it's all worked out,
yes.
or emails, voicemail.
Yeah, the voicemail, yeah. System, hopefully, has been delivered. They're configuring the system. I'll let Jeff speak to a couple updates on it.
Afternoon, Board. Yeah, latest update, the server is on site at TCG. They're configuring it now. They just got it today. So it is being configured. They will be out tomorrow to try and gather some more data off of our old system. So it may go down again tomorrow when they're gathering the data, but I anticipate it being put in and configured this week.
Can we update the automated attendant message
Yes.
so that it directs people to the
Yes.
right department for park permits?
Yep.
Working on it.
We're working on that. Mr. Terry's put together a flow sheet. Once the system's in, we're gonna meet with each of the departments to talk about flows. We did agree that, the shorter ring on the voicemail system, some of them are individually set for longer, so we're gonna go to a standard, throughout the township. So if it's not picked up in so many rings, it goes directly to the voicemail. But yeah, part of that is updating the prompt system. There'll be also potentially some additional prompts in some of the other departments as well.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Terry.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 35, of the Road Department. is to extend two of our seasonal employees. Information is on page 35. Mr. Parks is here to answer any questions.
No questions?
No, I think he's satisfied what we have here, and
Well,
they're
with-
willing to work, and we have the work to do, and it's been budgeted within what our guidelines.
Yes.
We should
Okay.
just keep going. So,
With that being said, I'll make a motion to extend the seasonal part-time employees Clayton Caudell and Joseph Slayer's hours through October 31st, 2016.
Second.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Kretz?
Yes.
Ms. Graff?
and that's within the guidelines of the hours that we had approved at the beginning.
Thank you, Board.
Did you have any flooding at all this weekend, which was an interesting rain weekend event?
Last couple weeks.
It's been good for new stuff.
No, we did not. Knock on wood.
Wonderful.
Stayed down all weekend, which is very surprising. Did have a couple phone calls for trees down, but yesterday's storm, but those happened to be on county roads, so we pushed those off to that.
Mr. Geyer was on TV this afternoon showing how they're cleaning up the county roads with
I
the
think at
streets.
one point, either Saturday or Sunday, they had 6 or 7 trees down in different locations. They were just trying to make it around to get them off the road.
Do they have enough personnel to do that, or do we ever assist if necessary?
They have enough personnel to do it if they can find the guys that aren't on call to come in if they need to.
And we've pulled off the library for now.
Oh, we're back on the
All right.
library.
Back on the library
We actually started stripping the roof
today.
this morning.
So when we had pulled off to finish, so they could finish the high school, were we tarped off over there, or how far did they get? They hadn't done anything yet.
It was just the
Actually-
gravel, right?
Actually, they had delivered all the material and were stripping gravel, which I'd like to say we got probably 100 tons of free gravel out of it. It's not free, but we'll be able to use it for our
Reuse,
purposes.
yeah.
But then they started this morning, like I said, stripping the roof off, and now they are there to stay until the project is complete.
Okay, we didn't have any intrusion, no leaks or
No.
anything the last couple weeks.
We were
And
lucky
then,
those-
We're
Do we-
working on a solution for the condensation problem throughout this building and several of our other ones.
This is not leaks, it's condensation.
It's condensation.
It's, yeah, there's a humidity, and today when I came over, it was very humid in this room, even though the AC was working. And what happens is between the drop ceiling and the ceiling, we're building up condensation, and it's dropping on the ceiling tiles.
Yeah.
And it's not just in here. There's other areas within the building that have issues as well.
So are those ducts not insulated at all above us, or?
They are to a point. What our problem is the heat or of the above space, especially like when you get upstairs. Some of that, it'll get to 100, 200 degrees in that space. And then we're keeping this space at 68, 70 degrees. So you get that contrast.
Dew point.
Especially this time of year when we've got all the humidity hanging around.
The
I
rain
mean,
isn't helping.
We've got the radio room at 62s. Condensation's actually coming in the pipes from the tower. How we're gonna solve that, that's another work in progress, but we're working towards solutions.
Alright, we just thought about that for safety reasons. And then last we're walking out, did we mention the hornet's nest in the pipe out here?
In the vent.
Forgot about it. We'll get it taken care of.
Pick that up.
Any other questions on the biweekly report?
I had none.
When it says high water factory 9 hours, was it closed for 9 hours altogether?
No, that's
or-
what we paid in overtime. We brought
Oh, okay.
2 guys in to close it. They actually sat there probably almost 2, because usually if we sit that long, we'll go back down because of the rain we had
Okay,
that
you can
day.
take it.
It didn't. And I brought somebody back in later that night, because I knew by then it should have been down to kick the signs off.
Okay, so those were man hours, not
Those were
how
man
long
hours,
it was
correct.
closed. Okay. Yeah, that was what I was confused with. Okay. And what are we gonna do about the stolen grates?
They've been replaced.
Do we put
And if
them
we're-
down so they can't be pulled up?
No,
No.
you can't put those.
I understand. So who goes around
They're
stealing
heavy, too.
grates?
Scrap.
Scrap metal.
Scrap metal.
Mhm.
Scrap metal.
Ah.
And actually, they got 3 of the 5 in that neighborhood, and I think they probably got 2 or 3 off Indian Ripple Road in the city.
Do we stamp or ID ours or not?
No, we do not.
Even then, it can be ground off. So
Yeah.
the only thing I know, there's a company that, and it's not relevant in this case, but there's a company that RFID tags them in New York and Chicago and LA and Phoenix, and so
This-
when they're
this-
stolen, they can find them.
Wow.
This is the first theft we've had
They must do it.
of that type of material.
Yeah.
Now, we get road closed signs or signs stolen all the time. Probably in my career. And the thing about those are, all they're gonna do is cut them up, put them in with some other scrap, so they
Mhm.
don't get noticed, because
Right.
one would think it'd be very obvious if you showed up with
3.
a pickup truckload of grates that are in good condition.
They make
Right.
good.
And it's not a municipal truck.
Yeah.
No, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The signs, usually when kids go off to college, we'll end up recovering
Yeah.
some of our signs back, and
Yeah.
the mom and dad will bring them in because they're hanging in their bedroom. So every once in a while.
Parents
we'll do that.
return them, yeah. Okay.
Well, we're looking for permanent signs to put down on Valley Springs. It's only a matter of time before those temporary ones get.
Yeah.
Do we keep
Well, those are the
a
detour sign. I think I know where that
a
one.
backlog so we can replace those?
Signs we do,
I mean, the grates.
grates we do not.
Because that would be, you're driving along, you can go in there and then you're
Yeah.
in the car.
Basically what we did in that neighborhood is went in and cut some plywood and put cones on top of it to keep people from stepping. Because it was well back off the road.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's not so terrible. Dayton had it very close to the sidewalk, and you could see where people, you could just break a leg,
You
no.
can't very easily, because depending on the grade, or what the grade's covering, it could be a 2 to 4 foot drop.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the Fire Department's biweekly report. I do want to point out 1.6, discussion that took place at the last meeting in regards to an overpayment issue. There was not a mistake by staff or the fiscal office in regards to the overpayment. Both departments sat down with the employee and educated the employee on reading the check stub. So this was an employee error, not familiar with some changes that the bank made in regards to deductions. So there was not a overpayment issue.
There was no error. Okay, very good.
Are there any questions on the fire department biweekly report?
1.7, it's not a question, it's just impressive.
Mhm.
274 out of 300 hydrants that we have, is that what you're saying?
The report is referring to the number of hydrants that were tested this summer. So there are about 3,000 hydrants, more or less, in Beavercreek Township. Of those 3,000, we tested a little over 300, and of those 300, Youth Works employees were able to get about 275, 280 of them input into Firehouse. So we have the records in and calculated and recorded. And then our staff will finish off the remaining few. And then next year, hopefully, we'll
10%,
be able to-
that's not a,
It's a great number, considering what we've done historically, and it's a great number for the kids. They did a great job. They were out there every day in this kind of heat, many days, and they did an excellent job getting those Because it's 300 hydrants that were tested, there were also 300 hydrants that were flowed in addition to that. So they ended up touching 2 hydrants for every one of those tests. So they got a lot of work done over the summer.
You have any, a record of how many hours that they put in?
Yeah, actually, we will have we'll have a final financial and time tally for you next meeting. We
Good.
just didn't have the final records in time to get it into this bi-weekly.
Yeah, because that's an impressive amount of work for which we had youngsters who got good experience,
Absolutely.
and
Save the
which the
taxpayer.
taxpayers of Greene County did not have to pay. So I think that a great thank you has to go to someone.
I'll forward it to Ms. Gustafson. She's the one that found the program and got us signed up and has persevered over about 3 years of going back and forth to get them out here. So if it's available again next year, we certainly want to take advantage again next year.
I think we need to send something, some sort of a letter from the township to the people who supervise the program, or to the legislators that approve the program, letting them know how much it's appreciated and how we would like it to continue.
All right, we can do that. Absolutely.
Anyone else? No? I guess we don't have anything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. That's all I have.
Okay. Legal advisor?
Nothing at this time.
Trustees?
I'll let Jeff go first.
Okay, Jim.
And all my questions were answered
Okay.
before the meeting.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a public appeal to Ms. Aarons, the fiscal officer, to consider dropping her mandamus request. The township has spent close to $20,000 on legal fees, and to my understanding, we have been through some challenging times in the fiscal office as far as transition, but we have 2 very good individuals that accepted those positions, and I think it's time to put that to rest.
Okay. And I just have a request, or an asking, when we will be getting the minutes of the meetings so that we can be approving them. Do you have any timeline?
Well, we're working to get them finished and caught up so they can be numbered. And then there'll probably be a lot more that are brought in one. They'll all kind of be brought together.
Okay,
So
because I think.
I don't have a timeline for it, but
Okay, because
They're
it's
not
like
being-
months here in.
they're not being neglected.
Well, that's good. I just would like to be able to approve them. And the question is, sometimes if it's now, well, it'll be September, and we're approving something from May or June, I'm not as good at remembering as Mr. Chris is exactly what took place. And so if it's more timely, it would be easier to recollect as we're going along. But I'll be pleased when we start getting caught up.
I made to that point, I made the comment to Ms. Brown, or maybe even to Ed, and maybe it's something we should consider as a township. For everyone's time and sake of time, there are dictation software out there that will essentially take those minutes and convert it for you, voice to text. And whether it's a zoning hearing or a BZA meeting or a trustee meeting, I don't know if that's something we should look into. I have no idea, I can't tell you if it's $500 or $5,000, but
I've got
the amount of time I know.
look at some of that transcription software, and it struck me as more affordable than I thought it would be, so.
I know the amount of time just from a
I'll take a deeper
BZA or zoning commission, alone, but, and then if fiscal can benefit from that as well, for everyone's sake, to not pay high dollar individuals to be
Right.
doing,
Agreed.
Yeah, then they just have to edit and modify.
right. Someone has to proof it, obviously.
Well, I guess we can ask the administrator to look into see what it might be. Okay.
If you can assist with that, it'd be great. I think for everyone's benefit.
All right. Ms. Aarons, you have anything?
I was going to bring back up the Kitty Crockett agreement that obviously I sent you an email as to why I couldn't be at the last meeting. And with some just general information that, although staff in my office is up and running and doing a great job in trying to learn their jobs, there are certainly things that come up, and honestly are maybe unknown. It was not, for training purposes. Ms. Schultz is signed up to go to UAN, to go to Columbus. She's getting training, has done online training. It's not that. It's for the unforeseen things that might come up, having such new and inexperienced staff in that office. I am not anticipating having to use it. It's more as a consultant, if needed. That was the only intention. So Ms. Crockett's not been in the office since the beginning of August. So like I said, I think that the staff is doing a great job, but that was really the purpose. No other reason.
If there are things that come up, who provides the UAN? Treasurer's office? Or
Auditor's office.
the auditor's office? Is not there an auditor available to answer technical questions such as that, how you do such and such, or how you input such and such, as part of the rental, if you would?
But like I said, you're focusing on UAN. My office comprises many more things besides just the UAN. This really was not only to be UAN. She is a certified traveling fiscal officer. She's knowledgeable in many things. That was the reason. Like I said, I am not anticipating, but if we have new staff, and it was just to keep, if we needed, if an issue came up where we needed an hour of her time to come in, then that was it. If you're opposed to it and you don't want that experience on hand, that's fine. If I come into an issue where I think that her expertise would be merited, then I have no problem calling you and asking for a special trustee meeting, and you can certainly do it that way. However, just keep in mind, we have two very inexperienced and new employees,
Right.
so running, an office that handles $26 million.
Well,
So,
okay. Seeing no other comment? Executive session?
I'll make a motion to
I'm
go.
sorry,
Oh,
can
sorry.
so is there no resolution?
Exactly.
You're willing
There was no
not to-
motion, therefore.
So the trustees okay, I've decided no motion.
Yeah. No motion was presented to approve the contract for Ms. Crockett. If
Well,
that's
Yeah,
what
I'll-
you wanted for
presented,
the
it
minute.
just wasn't, that, I just
Right.
wanna make sure that I
Right,
get
no-
it right,
no
that's
motion-
all.
No motion was ever made, correct.
Yeah, okay.
So from my own, I would never unreasonably withhold that. I think the question before was always if we have available resources from the auditor's office, from the state, from the OTA, and from our OTA association, that we exhaust those before we go out. I don't believe this board would ever unreasonably, at least I would not unreasonably withhold that if it was ever needed. With that, I'll make a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G3, conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action.
Second.
Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. Graff.
Yes.
At 2:49, I'll make a motion to come out of executive session.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anything else to come before the board at this time? Seeing none?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 2:50 p.m.
Second.
I'm gonna call it. Mr. Kretz,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
Ms. Graff.